Hi everybody, I'm Paul Tran. Welcome to Learning Unplugged, the place to come for acoustic music and acoustic learning. What we mean by acoustic learning is learning with no technology except the camera pointing at me right now. What we do on Learning Unplugged is we take a look at some simple, effective models that help us think and do things differently. So let's put the mandolin away. Today we're going to take a look at a really cool model. It's particularly good when you're guiding people through change. It's from a guy called David Kantor, and it's the Kantor 4-player system. It looks at 4 behaviours. Kantor's research came up with 4 players that are the most common behaviours he noticed around change. What we're going to do is take a look at all 4 players' behaviours and have a think about how we can get the best out of them. And before we start, let's just be mindful that we don't use this as a labelling exercise. People's behaviour is transient. People move through 2, 3, maybe even 4 of these behaviours every day. So let's observe the behaviour in front of us right now and be mindful that we're not using this as a labelling exercise. So let's take a look at the 4 players. The first player is what Kantor calls the mover. And this person is someone who's a bit directive, who is quite assertive, who really gets things done. And yet sometimes this behaviour, despite all the good intentions, comes across as a bit dictatorial, a little bit impatient, a little bit scattered. How do we get the best out of this behaviour? I think it's really good to get people on board quickly when they're exhibiting this behaviour and give them a task to do that gives them a little bit of ownership so they feel like they've got a stake in whatever the task or project is. That's a good start when it comes to dealing with the mover behaviour. Let's look at the second player or behaviour. This is the follower. And here the intention of this behaviour is to be of service, to show a bit of compassion and a bit of completion. And sometimes this behaviour comes across as being a little bit over compliant, a little bit uncritical. The best way of dealing with this behaviour is to really start off by giving this behaviour something to do that you know and they know they can do. Gives them a little bit of confidence. And it also gives them the space to help you by supporting you with other members of the team and influencing them really effectively on your behalf. They also need a lot of encouragement and support all the way through this. So that's some good ideas for dealing with the follower behaviour. The third one is what Kantor calls the opposer. Now this behaviour intends to show a bit of clarity and honesty, integrity, and sometimes it comes across as being a bit contrary, opposing for opposing's sake. I've heard this behaviour get called all sorts of rude names when I've worked. Now, to get the best out of this behaviour, the best starting point is to work out what's behind the behaviour in the first place. Sometimes it's something very deep-seated that hasn't been resolved. And then always make it clear that you're considering their ideas and weighing them up with evidence. Their evidence and maybe your or other people's evidence. And show them that process. And often I find that with opposers, if you show them that you're considering what they have to say, it softens their approach. And also if you give them a little bit of responsibility, that helps too. And bear in mind that a really good opposer can be a very good devil's advocate for the team. So there's some use there. So that's a good starting point for dealing with the opposer behaviour. The fourth player or behaviour is what Kantor calls the bystander. And this is somebody who's very thoughtful, very patient, who thinks quite deeply. But sometimes this behaviour comes across as a bit disengaged, a bit withdrawn, a bit standoffish. So what's the best way of dealing with this behaviour? Well, a good starting point is to give them something to do that you know they can do, that can show real quick results for them and the team. That gets them on board with others. And then sometimes prompt them, just get them to flesh out their thoughts. If you're working virtually, get them to use chat rather than speak. That tends to help a lot. And that's a good starting point for dealing with the bystander behaviour. So there you go. Kantor's 4 players. The mover, the follower, the opposer, and the bystander. The big key here is to value all 4 behaviours. To always be thinking, how do I get the best out of this behaviour? And to always be clear that their behaviour is absolutely fine. It's the way they are. Now, the big magic with this one, though, is to really get to know what makes somebody move from one behaviour to the other. And that's where you really get a feel for what they're thinking and how they tend to work. So, play around with the 4 players. Let me know how you get on in the comments below. Always interested to hear how you get on with this. And I'd love to hear your ideas and thoughts. Now, if you want to know more about Learning Unplugged and some of the previous videos we've done, take a look at the website, ptps.co.uk, or the YouTube channel, Paul Tran Trainer, where you can see all of them. Have a lot of fun with the 4 players. Let me know how you get on. Enjoy whatever you do and stay safe. And I'll see you on the next Learning Unplugged.